Sometimes the smallest moments can change everything. This is a story about kindness, about courage, and about how one simple act can turn your whole world upside down. So sit back, take a breath, and let me tell you about Sofia Martinez and the day that changed her life forever. It was a Tuesday morning in Boston, the kind of morning where the sun is just starting to peek over the buildings, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In the heart of the city's financial district, there stood a restaurant called the Azure Garden. Beautiful place, elegant, the kind of restaurant where business executives close million-dollar deals over lunch, where everything is polished and perfect. And working there was Sofia Martinez. Sofia was 26 years old, with warm brown eyes that seemed to sparkle whenever she smiled. And she smiled a lot. She had this energy about her, the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking into it. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore her server's apron like a badge of honor. She loved her job. Sure, it wasn't glamorous. Sure, her feet ached at the end of every shift, but Sofia found joy in the little things, in making people's day a little brighter, in remembering a regular customer's favorite order, in the simple satisfaction of doing good work. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Sofia clocked in at 7, breathing in that familiar smell of fresh coffee and warm pastries. The restaurant was just coming to life. The sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen, the hiss of the espresso machine, the soft murmur of early morning conversations. It was like music to her, a rhythm she'd come to know by heart. She was humming to herself, setting up tables when the door opened, and in walked a man who didn't belong. At least, that's what everyone else thought. He was homeless, you could tell immediately. His clothes were torn and dirty, hanging loose on his thin frame. His face was weathered and worn, etched with lines that told stories of cold nights and hungry days. His hair was gray and wild, his beard unkempt. He walked slowly, carefully, like every step took effort. The restaurant went quiet. You know that feeling when something uncomfortable happens and suddenly everyone's pretending not to notice, while actually noticing everything? That's what it felt like. Customers looked up from their coffee cups, then quickly looked away. The other servers stopped what they were doing, exchanging glances with each other, and the homeless man, his name was Robert, just stood there near the entrance, humble, quiet, not causing any trouble. He just wanted something to eat. But then Mr. Thornton appeared. Mr. Thornton was the manager of the Azure Garden, and let me tell you, he was not a kind man. Tall, severe, always dressed in a crisp suit. He ran that restaurant like a military operation. Rules were rules. Image was everything. And a homeless man in his pristine restaurant? That was unacceptable. His eyes went cold the moment he saw Robert. His jaw clenched, and without a moment's hesitation, he snapped his fingers at the staff. "Remove him," he said, his voice sharp and cutting. "Now, we don't serve his kind here." His kind. Those words hung in the air like poison. Sofia felt something twist in her chest. She watched as her coworkers moved to follow the order, their faces carefully blank. Nobody questioned it. Nobody objected. They were just going to throw this man out onto the street, back into the cold, back to his hunger. And something inside Sofia said no. Not today, not on my watch. Her heart was pounding as she stepped forward. Her hands were shaking a little, but she kept her voice steady and warm. She walked right up to Robert, ignoring Mr. Thornton's glare burning into her back, and she smiled. "Good morning, sir," she said, like he was any other customer. "Can I get you something to eat?" You should have seen Robert's face. His eyes went wide with surprise. He'd expected to be thrown out, cursed at, treated like garbage. But here was this young woman treating him like a human being. I don't have much money," he said quietly, his voice rough and uncertain. "Don't worry about that right now," Sofia said gently. "Let's just get you something warm. How about some roasted chicken with mashed potatoes, some vegetables, a hot meal?" Robert nodded, and Sofia could see his eyes getting misty. Behind her, she could hear Mr. Thornton hissing at another server. "What does she think she's doing? Tell her to stop this immediately." But Sofia didn't stop. She took Robert to a table in the corner, brought him water, and then went to the kitchen to put in his order. Her heart was racing. She knew she was breaking the rules. She knew there would be consequences. But looking into that man's tired, grateful eyes, she knew she couldn't have done anything else. When the food came out, steaming and delicious, she set it down in front of Robert with the same care she'd give to any guest. And then she did something more. She sat down across from him for just a moment. "How's your day going?" she asked. Robert looked at her like she'd just spoken a foreign language. When was the last time someone had asked him that? When was the last time someone had seen him as a person? They talked for a few minutes, not about his circumstances, nothing that would make him uncomfortable. Just conversation about the weather, about Boston, about little things. Sofia gave him something more valuable than food. She gave him dignity. When it came time for the bill, Sofia quietly paid for it herself. It wasn't much money for her, but she knew it meant everything to him. She didn't make a big deal about it. She just did it. As Robert prepared to leave, his meal finished, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. His hands were trembling as he handed it to Sofia. "Please," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Read this after I'm gone. Not before, promise me." Sofia took the note, confused but agreeing. "I promise." She watched him walk toward the door, his posture a little straighter now, his step a little more sure. And then he was gone, disappearing into the Boston streets. The restaurant returned to normal. Well, except for Mr. Thornton, who was fuming in his office. Sofia knew she'd probably get written up, maybe even fired. But honestly, she didn't care. She'd do it again in a heartbeat. It wasn't until her break, about an hour later, that Sofia remembered the note. She found a quiet corner and carefully unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat but shaky, like whoever wrote it had been nervous. And as Sofia began to read, her entire world tilted on its axis. "Dear Sofia," it began, "you don't know me, but I know you. My name is Robert Chen, and I own the Azure Garden." Sofia's breath caught in her throat. "I came to my restaurant today dressed as a homeless man because I wanted to see the truth. I wanted to see how my employees treat people when they think no one important is watching. I wanted to know what kind of people work for me." Her hands were shaking now. "What I saw broke my heart. I saw cruelty. I saw coldness. I saw people willing to throw a hungry man into the street without a second thought. But then I saw you. You, Sofia, who gave me food, who gave me conversation, who gave me dignity. You saw a human being where others saw trash." Tears were starting to blur Sofia's vision. "You paid for my meal with your own money. You defied your manager to do what was right. You reminded me why I opened this restaurant in the first place, to bring people together, to nourish not just their bodies, but their spirits." The letter continued. "Tomorrow morning, please come to the Azure Garden at 9 a.m. Come to the main dining room. I have something important to discuss with you. Thank you, Sofia. Thank you for being exactly who you are. With deepest gratitude, Robert Chen." Sofia read the letter 3 times, each time thinking she must have misunderstood. The homeless man was the owner of the Azure Garden, one of the most successful restaurateurs in Boston, and he wanted to meet with her tomorrow. Her mind was spinning. What did this mean? Was she in trouble? Was this real? She looked at the signature again, looked at the paper. It was real. This was happening. That night, Sofia couldn't sleep. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the day, the look on Robert's face when she'd smiled at him, the anger in Mr. Thornton's eyes, the taste of fear when she'd defied a direct order, the weight of the note in her hands. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow everything would change. But even in her anxiety, even in her uncertainty, Sofia felt something else too. She felt proud, because no matter what happened, she'd done the right thing. She'd chosen kindness over cruelty, compassion over comfort. And that, she knew, was something no one could take away from her. The clock ticked toward morning, toward a meeting that would transform her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Have you ever had a night where you just couldn't turn your brain off? Where every thought spins around and around until you're dizzy with questions? That's what Sofia's night was like. She lay in her bed, in her tiny Boston apartment, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. The letter sat on her nightstand, and every few minutes she'd reach over and read it again, just to make sure it was real. Robert Chen, the owner, the man she'd fed, was the man who owned the Azure Garden. Part of her was terrified. What if this was some elaborate setup? What if she was about to be fired for breaking the rules? Mr. Thornton had been furious, and now she'd find out he was probably right to be angry. She'd defied a manager's direct order. In any normal situation, that meant you were done. But another part of her, a quieter part, felt something different. Peace, because even if she lost her job tomorrow, even if everything fell apart, she knew one thing for certain. She'd done the right thing. She'd seen a hungry man and fed him. She'd seen someone being treated like garbage and treated him like gold instead. And that mattered. That would always matter. The night crawled by, slow and restless. When her alarm finally rang at 7 a.m., Sofia felt like she hadn't slept at all. But she got up, showered, put on her best clothes, not her server uniform, but a simple dress that made her feel confident, and headed out into the Boston morning. The city was waking up around her, people hurrying to work, taxis honking, the smell of coffee from corner shops. Everything was normal for everyone else. But for Sofia, the whole world felt like it was holding its breath. She arrived at the Azure Garden at 8:45, 15 minutes early. The restaurant wasn't open yet, and the door was locked, but through the window she could see someone moving inside. At exactly 9 a.m., the door opened, and there he was. But he looked nothing like the man she'd served yesterday. Robert Chen stood before her in an immaculate navy suit, his gray hair neatly combed, his beard trimmed and groomed. He looked like what he was, a successful businessman, someone important, someone powerful. But his eyes were the same, warm, kind, human. "Sofia," he said, and his voice was gentle. "Thank you for coming. Please come in." She stepped inside, her heart hammering so loud she was sure he could hear it. The restaurant looked different when it was empty, bigger somehow, more intimidating. Robert led her to a table and gestured for her to sit. He sat across from her, and for a moment he just looked at her, not in a creepy way, in a way that said he was really seeing her. "I suppose you have questions," he said finally. Sofia's mouth was dry. "A few, yes." He smiled, and it was sad. "I'm sorry for the deception. I'm sorry for putting you in that position. But I needed to know the truth about my restaurant." And then he began to talk. He told her that he'd built the Azure Garden from nothing. Started as a line cook, worked his way up, saved every penny until he could open his own place. For years, it had been his dream, his baby, his legacy. He'd always believed that a restaurant should be more than just food. It should be a place where people felt welcome, where everyone was treated with respect. But lately, he said, his voice heavy, I'd been hearing things, complaints about the staff being cold, stories about people being turned away if they didn't look right. I tried to address it with management, but the problems continued. He looked down at his hands. So yesterday, I decided to see for myself. I dressed as a homeless man and walked into my own restaurant. And what I saw, he paused, and Sofia could see the pain in his eyes. What I saw disgusted me. Sofia listened, barely breathing. Mr. Thornton didn't even hesitate, Robert continued. He looked at me with such contempt, like I was less than human. And the staff, they just followed his lead. Nobody questioned it. Nobody showed even a hint of compassion. He looked up at Sofia, and his expression softened. And then there was you. Sofia felt tears prickling at her eyes. You didn't just feed me, Sofia. You talked to me. You smiled at me. You paid for my meal with your own money. You treated me like I mattered. And you did all of this knowing it could cost you your job. I couldn't just let them throw you out, Sofia said quietly. It wasn't right. No, Robert agreed. It wasn't right. And the fact that you were the only one who saw that tells me everything I need to know. He stood up then and walked to the window, looking out at the Boston streets. This morning I fired Mr. Thornton. Sofia gasped. He's been creating a culture of cruelty in my restaurant, Robert said, and I won't tolerate it anymore. A manager sets the tone for everyone else, and his tone was all wrong. He turned back to face her. Sophia, I asked you here because I want to offer you something. I want to offer you his job. For a moment, Sophia couldn't process the words. They didn't make sense. Offer her what job? Mr. Thornton's job? The manager position? I, I'm sorry, what? She stammered. I want you to be the new manager of the Azure Garden, Robert said clearly. You have something that can't be taught. You have compassion. You have integrity. You have the courage to do what's right even when it's hard. Those are the qualities I want leading my restaurant. Sophia's mind was reeling. But I'm just a server. I don't have experience managing. Both of them. You have the most important experience, Robert interrupted gently. You know how to treat people with dignity. Everything else can be learned. I'll train you. I'll support you. But I need someone at the helm who understands what this restaurant is supposed to be about. Tears were rolling down Sophia's cheeks now. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Robert said with a smile. Say you'll help me turn this place back into what it should be. And Sophia, through her tears, laughed. Yes, yes, of course, yes. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Taking over as manager was one of the hardest things Sophia had ever done. Suddenly, she wasn't just serving tables. She was making schedules, handling problems, leading a team. And some of that team wasn't happy about the change. But Sophia didn't let that stop her. She started by sitting down with every staff member individually. She asked them about their experiences, their ideas, their concerns. She listened, really listened, and then she laid out her vision. This restaurant, she told them, is going to be a place where everyone is treated with respect. I don't care if someone walks in wearing a three-piece suit or clothes from the thrift store. I don't care if they're a CEO or they're homeless. Every single person who walks through that door deserves kindness. Some people pushed back. Some people quit. But others started to understand. They started to see what Sophia saw. She led by example. When a customer was rude, she responded with patience. When someone looked lost or uncomfortable, she made sure they felt welcome. She taught her staff that serving food wasn't just about taking orders. It was about making people feel valued. And slowly, gradually, the Azure Garden began to change. Customers noticed. They started leaving reviews talking about how warm the staff was, how welcome they felt. Word spread, business grew, but more importantly, the atmosphere changed. It felt different. It felt like what Robert had always dreamed it could be. One day, about 3 months after Sophia took over, an elderly woman came in. She was dressed plainly, counting her money carefully to see what she could afford. Sophia watched one of the newer servers, a young guy named Marcus, approach her table. She held her breath, wondering how he'd handle it. And Marcus smiled, genuinely smiled, and said, "Don't worry about the prices, ma'am. Let me tell you about our specials. What sounds good to you today?" Sophia felt her heart swell. He got it. They were starting to get it. That evening, Robert stopped by. He liked to do that sometimes. Just check in, see how things were going. He and Sophia sat together after closing, reviewing the day. "You've done something special here," Robert said, looking around the restaurant. "This place feels alive again. It feels right." Sophia smiled. "We still have work to do, but yeah, we're getting there." "Do you ever think about that day?" Robert asked. "The day I walked in as a homeless man?" "Every day," Sophia admitted. "Sometimes I can't believe it was real. That one moment changed my entire life." "You changed your own life," Robert corrected. "I just gave you an opportunity. You're the one who chose compassion over fear. You're the one who chose to do the right thing, even when it was hard." Sweet the thought about that, about how easily she could have looked away that morning, how easily she could have followed Mr. Thornton's orders like everyone else, how one decision, one choice to be kind, had led to all of this. "I think," she said slowly, "that we never know when the moment will come, the moment that tests who we really are. But when it does come, we have to be ready to be our best selves." Robert nodded. "And you were. You are." As Sophia walked home that night through the Boston streets, past the homeless people huddled in doorways, past the business people hurrying home, Past all the beautiful, messy humanity of the city, she felt grateful. Not just for the job, though she was grateful for that. Not just for the opportunity, though that too. But for the reminder that kindness matters. That how we treat people matters. That we're all just human beings trying to make it through this life. And the least we can do is be good to each other along the way. The Azure Garden became known throughout Boston not just for its food, but for its heart. And Sophia, the girl who'd fed a homeless man and changed her life, became known as the manager who believed that everyone deserves a seat at the table. Because in the end, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Seeing each other, really seeing each other and choosing kindness, even when it costs us something. Especially when it costs us something. That's the lesson Sophia learned that Tuesday morning. That's the lesson she carried with her every single day after. Kindness is never wasted. Compassion is never foolish. And sometimes when you do the right thing, the universe has a beautiful way of doing right by you.